Hi, if you want to watch exclusive content with hot girls that you won't watch on YouTube, namely where Naruto roasts Kushina and Mikoto and many other hot girls without restrictions, then visit my Boosty channel at the link in the description.
On the edge again. Once again, danger is stalking us. We are so stupid. Why? Stay strong, don't give up. So hard. The spring sun smiled brightly from above, gently touching the still cold tree trunks with its rays, gently awakening the first green shoots, and they in response reached out to such desired caresses. Sometimes obstacles appeared in front of them in the form of grayish, fluff-like clouds, and then the rays did not reach the ground, but instead scorched the gloomy clouds with their warm breath. Konoha is beautiful. Morning, afternoon, evening, night. Konoha is beautiful. Here even the sun shines differently, and the blue of the sky is beautiful in a completely different way. The streets, the shops and houses scattered along them, the children running here and there, the ringing of cheerful, bright laughter that enlivened the village. And from the Hokage mountain it was even more amazing. How many times Naruto had climbed up here, and each time her knees buckled from the delight that had seized her. Konoha is her home. This is what she must protect. This is what makes her heart flutter every time. This is the place where they think about her. The place where she became who she is now, and the people who made her this way believed in her, were able to accept and love her. Hatred and fear into love and respect. What could be more important for a useless orphan who could not find a place for herself even in her native village? Konoha had changed. She had changed. They had grown together, rising from their knees after every fall. The village had tempered her will and given her strength, and she had protected it with her own life in return. Her Konoha is beautiful. Uzumaki smiled softly when she felt a barely noticeable tingling of her native chakra behind her back. Kakashi is waiting for us. No hello to you, no how are you? Nothing unusual, though. Another mission? The blonde asked, stretching. Sasuke, who had been lazily watching her movements, nodded briefly. His presence always inspired a special calm. Naruto couldn't even believe that this whole war and Sasuke's idiotic ideas were over. She quickly got used to always feeling the Uchiha's chakra, and even him, as a part of herself, that Sasuke was always nearby, just like before, but now everything was different. They rethought a lot, and their feelings for each other became more mature. They still didn't always understand each other, but their silence spoke louder than any words. It was much easier to bear pain and loneliness together. No matter how much Naruto cherished the village and her friends, Sasuke was something completely different, inexplicable, but the most important and precious thing in her life. You need to have something in common to understand each other, and something different to love each other. This is about them. She needs him like air, just as he needs her. Love bordering on dependence, battered by hatred, rage and pain, which will never be like the ones described in books, only because they did not know how to love like that. But precisely because of this, it is the strongest. Ideal for the two of them, on whose shoulders the problems of the whole world fell. Ooh. Naruto jumped to her feet, casting a farewell glance at the village and approached the Uchiha. Hello, Sasuke. I'm fine, how are you? The brunette only chuckled at the girl's tease. Oh, come on, Uzumaki muttered, not at all upset. Okay, let's go, let's not keep sensei waiting. A second later, the two shinobi disappeared from Mount Hokage with a barely audible rustle. You called, Hokage-sensei? Oh, hi, Shika. The door to the 6th Hokage's office suddenly opens, letting in a sparkling Naruto and a clearly bored Sasuke. Hatake sighed heavily and looked at his two most problematic students with pity and resignation. Everything inside him warmed up as usual as soon as he glanced at them. Heroes of the Fourth World War, the strongest shinobi in the world and simply his students. The best. The most beloved. Kakashi still sees in the shadow of the already strong, both physically and mentally, shinobi those kids who have just started their journey and have not yet drowned in all that blood and pain. And no matter how hard he tried, he could not react to them differently. Naruto. Yes, Kakashi-sensei, forgive me, the girl smiled, throwing her hands behind her head. So why did you call us? Here, Hatake tossed the scroll into Sasuke's hands, who opened it immediately. Naruto glanced over his shoulder with interest. A week ago, our sensors detected a surge of foreign chakra near the Canopy Bridge, but when a group of Jonin went there, they found nothing. And? Sasuke asked, giving Uzumaki the scroll. She was spotted again 2 days ago, Nara answered for Kakashi, placing several papers in front of him. And again, the squad sent out found nothing. Okay, the blonde rolled up the scroll and, shoving it into her partner's hands, asked. Are we moving out today? Yes, the ash-haired man nodded. Preferably as quickly as possible. Then, let's go. Be careful. Hi. Hatake frowned at the place where his students had stood a second ago. My soul felt uneasy. You know, I have some strange feeling. Shut up, the tree branch bent slightly as Sasuke landed on it and immediately jumped onto another one. Every time you say that, something happens. I already told you. Naruto flared up indignantly. What can I do, Dadabeo? I have a bad. The girl stopped mid-sentence when the destroyed Canopy Bridge appeared ahead, premonition. The Uchiha instantly shielded her with his body and, activating the Sharingan, tried to figure out the source of the foreign chakra. I won't let you come any closer. We have a mission, Uzumaki replied calmly, looking warily over his shoulder. Naruto. Mission, Sasuke. The brunette purses his lips in displeasure, meeting the stubborn gaze of the girl who has entered sage mode. How many years have passed, but this trait of her character has remained with her. Whatever came into her head, she will die, but she will do it. And you can't convince her otherwise, she knows from her own experience. Let's go. The blonde flashed a toothy smile, but the next second she immediately became more serious and headed towards the bridge. The chakra was strongest on the opposite side of the river, where the shinobi headed. Naruto pursed her lips, the bad feeling only intensified, and the fluctuation of the unknown chakra only confused her more. Quiet footsteps were heard from behind. Sasuke was following her warily and sensed the girl's nervousness immediately, but he remained silent, preferring to simply stay nearby. Naruto. As soon as they reach the ruins by the riverbank, Kurama calls out sharply to his Jinchuriki. There's an unfamiliar worry in his voice. Something's wrong, get out of there. You're talking about. Uzumaki doesn't have time to finish. Everything goes dark before her eyes, and the last thing she sees is Sasuke slowly falling to the side. To live, you have to rush, get confused, fight, make mistakes, start and quit, and start again, and quit again, and fight forever. Naruto woke up in an unfamiliar room. Her whole body ached from terrible pain. The ropes tied her hands tightly behind her back, and the rag left a nasty taste in her mouth. And she felt strange. As if it wasn't her at all. As if she was in a vacuum and couldn't properly understand her feelings. The girl somehow got into a sitting position and squinted her eyes, trying to see at least something, but a second later she fell to the side again. Her head began to hurt, as if it had been hit with something very heavy, and then images began to flash before her eyes. She sees herself, but different, quiet and timid. She sees many fragments, and at some point they stop seeming like something alien. Naruto catches himself thinking that he remembers these events. As if everything should be like this. And when the pictures end, panic slowly begins to rise. The blonde is at first lost in her feelings, trying to figure out who she is and which of the memories is hers. Everything is mixed up in her head, events, people, her own emotions and feelings, even herself. Naruto, it's going to hurt again, be patient. Uzumaki cries out in pain. Although only a muffled moan can be heard through the rag in her mouth. The pain bursts through her entire body, it corrodes and aches everything. The girl feels like acid is flowing through her veins instead of blood. She herself does not notice how tears begin to flow down her cheeks, and she arches herself more, twitching her hands, trying to at least free herself from the ropes. And then everything suddenly stops, and the warm and familiar chakra of Kurama spreads throughout the body, easing the hellish pain and cooling the hot head. Be patient, it will get easier soon. The blonde breathes heavily, greedily gulping air, causing a painful stabbing in her lungs, and closes her eyes, trying to come to her senses. Kurama? Yes, the Biju's voice is filled with boundless relief. Lie down for a bit, you need rest. You barely survived as it is. What's happening? What's happening, Kurama? Not now, Fox snapped, and only now did Uzumaki notice that he was breathing heavily, too. I sense Uchiha's chakra, let's wait until he gets here, and I'll explain it to both of you at once. Sasuke is here too? Relief washes over him, Naruto calms down. The presence of the Uchiha nearby gave him peace and a sense of security. With difficulty sitting up, the blonde concentrated to scan the area for the presence of shinobi, and if everything was clear with Sasuke, who would reach her in a minute, then the second source of chakra surprised her greatly. It's Hinata, yes, undoubtedly it's Hinata's chakra, but much, much weaker. Just like during the academy. What's going on here, Databeo? She doesn't have time to get an answer, the door opens abruptly, and Sasuke appears on the threshold. Uzumaki's eyes widen in shock. Instead of the 18-year-old Uchiha, there stands a 12-year-old child with a burning Sharingan, the leg of his gray shorts is stained with blood, he himself was battered, but there were no serious wounds in sight. As soon as he noticed the blonde, he immediately rushed forward, instantly finding himself on his knees in front of her. Thank you, her voice croaks, but she doesn't pay attention to it, and only rubs her numb wrists when Sasuke frees her hands after the rag. There's not a single undamaged spot on you, the brunette whispers and gently touches her cheek, habitually running the tip of his thumb along one of the stripes on it. My whole body aches, I thought I was going to die, Uzumaki answered pitifully, burying her forehead in his chest. Naruto, come down here. Kurama is calling, Sasuke. The Uchiha nods, and a second later they both find themselves in the Jinchuriki's subconscious. We have problems, Kyuubi immediately reports, falling heavily onto his hind legs. What are you saying? Sasuke chuckled and, catching the furious gaze of red eyes, raised an eyebrow questioningly. Stop it, now is not the time. Uzumaki indignantly jerked her hands, lightly pushing the brunette in the side, and then looked at the Biju. Yeah, Kurama looked pretty shabby, his ears were twitching nervously, and Naruto's heart sank at the sight. Wincing from the pain in her leg, she walked up to the fox and sat down by his paw, leaning against it, gently running her hand over the soft fur. In short, we are in a parallel universe. Naruto and Sasuke hung there for a few seconds, trying to comprehend what they had heard, while putting all their knowledge on the shelves, their own and others. What the hell, Databeo? Naruto grabbed her head with her hands, still not coming to her senses. How did this even happen? Remember Ryumayaku Dash? Uzumaki nodded, watching as Sasuke walked up to them and sat on the floor, listening intently. That chakra was something similar, but instead of the past, we were thrown into a parallel world. Damn, we need to get back as soon as possible. It won't work, Kurama cut him off abruptly. That chakra emission destroyed your bodies. So, the Uchiha, who had been silent until then, began cautiously. Are we stuck here? And we won't be able to go back. It turns out that way, Kyuubi nodded, closing his eyes. Naruto stared at her palms in shock. Childish, covered in small scratches and wounds, with dried blood remaining here and there. She was stuck in this body. In the body of a child who was also a Jinchuriki, who was also shunned and hated by the village, but in this world she carefully hid it, because she was, after all, the daughter of the Hokage. The latter was the worst thing. Her parents were alive. Moreover, she had 2 brothers. And they all avoided the quiet, timid Naruto, who did not fit into their family at all and could not in any way be the daughter of the legend of Konoha. In an instant, a long-forgotten but familiar loneliness rolled over her. She would wake up every day, see their faces and understand that these were not her parents, not the people who loved her more than life itself, who were ready to accept her anyway, who sacrificed precious years next to her so that she could live. She would walk the streets of her native village and understand that this was not her home. And this whole life was not hers. What about Naruto and Sasuke of this world? I don't know, Fox answered honestly, watching the children closely. I don't understand much at all, but now you are Namake's Naruto and Uchiha Sasuke. Your relatives are alive and well, and you yourself are now not far from the Kanobi Bridge, where you were dragged by some idiots who decided that they could hit the jackpot by kidnapping the children of the strongest clans of Konoha. Damn it, Hinata. Naruto jumps up abruptly, biting his thumb nervously. She was close, I sensed her chakra when I scanned the area. We need to go after her. What if those bastards come back? They won't come back. Sasuke winced at the blonde's questioning look. When I woke up, they were nearby. Now they're gone. All the same, we need to go after her. Naruto, Kurama continued after waiting for Uzumaki to look at him. You haven't used chakra for a week. What? Why else? Your chakra channel's almost burned out, idiot. Hyubi growled, watching with grim satisfaction as the blonde snapped her mouth shut and stared at him in fear. The Naruto here, even though she's an Uzumaki and has a lot of chakra, is still a child, and one with underdeveloped chakra channels. They simply couldn't handle the volume of your chakra. I fixed everything, but you'll have a chakra ban for a week or more. And Sasuke? He's not that bad. It's clear that the previous owner of the body took care of himself. He didn't pay attention to the chuckling Uchiha. But still, you should also refrain from using chakra. And be careful with the Sharingan. Okay, the brunette nods obediently, acknowledging the fact that he knows better. That's it, the rest later. Let's go get Hinata. It's here. Come on, open it. Hinata flinches as the door opens with a sickening creak. The dim light enters the room, and Hyuga squeezes her eyes shut, trying to calm her racing heart. Her whole body is shaking, a bead of sweat is running down her temple, and it feels like the air is slowly leaving her lungs. Hinata had never been so scared. She hears a slight rustling at the door, it sounds like someone was swearing, and then footsteps are heard. The brunette curled up even tighter and, holding her breath, waited for something she didn't know, but what was her surprise when, instead of rough male voices, she heard a childish and ringing one. Hinata. The girl is carefully helped to sit up, while the ropes on her legs and arms are untied. Imagine her surprise when, opening her eyes, she saw Naruto's face decorated with a wide smile in front of her. Naruto-chan? Never before had Hyuga seen her smile like that. And Uzumaki always spoke quietly, on the verge of a whisper. The person in front of her was somehow different from the daughter of Hokage-sama, with whom she studied at the academy, and simply knew all her life. Yeah, the smile became even wider, and the eyes, again, unusually for Hinata, sparkled. Are you okay? Those freaks didn't do anything to you? Why yes, everything is fine, Hinata answered, still surprised by such changes, and only now noticed Sasuke behind her. Who untied the ropes? Then great, the blonde plopped down on the ground. Shall we go on our own or wait? She turned to Uchiha. We've been here for several hours already, someone should have been sent for us. Uzumaki nods thoughtfully, and then pulls the brunette by the hand, forcing him to sit next to him. Sasuke doesn't even think to object. Catching Hinata's confused and surprised look, Uchiha raises an eyebrow questioningly. Hyuga blushes to the tips of his ears and shakes his head, as if to say, nothing, and lowers his head. A warm palm covers her trembling hands. Hinata looks at her in surprise, then looks up at Uzumaki. She smiled again, but this time softer and calmer, complete calm and confidence splashed at the bottom of her blue eyes. Goosebumps ran down her spine, and her heart skipped a few beats. Naruto had never looked like that and did not know how to smile like that. Everything is fine, they will take us away from here soon. Naruto's eyes are like the sky that the sun illuminates with its rays. They sparkle and shine, and Hinata can't believe that the empty and doomed look turned into this. But that doesn't matter. Uzumaki's smile finds a response somewhere inside, making everything warm up, and for the first time in the last few years, Hinata finds the strength to smile just as confidently and look back boldly. She finally feels at peace. They really did come for them. 15 minutes later, when Uzumaki got tired of sitting still, and they left the building as quickly as possible. Sasuke got rid of 2, there were probably more, so the children did not dare to risk it. And as soon as they left the building, they were met by 2 Umbu. Sasuke. The Uchiha froze. He had seen the memories of the Sasuke here, of course, and knew that his brother, like the rest of his clan, was alive and well, but he couldn't imagine how to react to this calmly. Sasuke stared at his hands with a darkened gaze, and an image of his palms, stained with his brother's blood, appeared before his eyes. He didn't dare raise his head until Naruto's fingers tightly clasped his elbow. From the outside it seemed as if she was holding on to him so as not to fall, but in reality the blonde was simply helping him come to his senses. Sasuke looks at her and, receiving a slight nod, sighs barely audibly. "I'm fine, Nai-san." Rikudo saw how hard it was for him to get the last word out. He was confused and he really didn't know how to react. He had the same feeling when he found out the whole truth about Itachi. Then, lost and somewhat broken, he had staggered back and forth, not knowing what was right and what was wrong. But now everything was different. He had Naruto, and they would get through this too. Together. The clenched fingers only confirmed his thoughts. By Kami, Emuto, one of the shinobi jumps up to Naruto, a barely noticeable worry splashing in his dark blue eyes, just like her mother's. The guy twirled her in his arms, and then, unexpectedly for Naruto, hugged her. "How do you even manage to collect so many problems on your head?" Sorry, Naokini, she can't look at her, brother. In addition to her memories, she also had her emotions, so she relatively calmly accepted the fact that the red-haired guy, Itachi's age, was her older brother, but it was still hard to come to terms with it. Uzumaki didn't dare hug him back. Sasuke snorted slightly at the blonde stuttering, but said nothing. She looked too lost. He flinched when Itachi approached him and, gently placing his hand on the top of his head, carefully examined him for wounds. "Are you hurt?" the elder Uchiha asked, noticing the scarlet stains on his brother's gray shorts. "No," came the sharp answer, and Itachi was surprised by the icy tone. "You're bleeding, Sasuke." "Not mine." Irritation slowly began to rise inside. Living Itachi, Naruto's new brother, weakness in the whole body and the whole situation caused a strong desire to smash something to pieces. "There were two, I killed them." Hinata flinched, and Itachi and Naoki exchanged silent glances. "Can we go already?" Uzumaki spoke up. "Hinata is scared, she needs to go to the hospital and then home." "Yes, let's go." Itachi nodded thoughtfully, shifting his gaze from the blushing Hyuga to his brother. Naruto gently pushed her brother away and, limping, walked away from him a few steps, carefully hiding her gaze. The red-haired man looked after his sister in surprise. Before, she herself always climbed to hug and tried to enjoy his touches as long as possible, but now it felt like he was a stranger to her. But the guy pushed these thoughts away, writing it off as stress. "Get in." Uzumaki smiled gratefully at Sasuke and carefully climbed onto his back, tightly wrapping her arms around his neck. The familiar scent of forest herbs and air after a recent thunderstorm hit her nose, and a wave of familiar peace ran through her entire body. "Sasuke is near, Sasuke will not leave her." "We'll manage," the brunette said resignedly, as if he had read her thoughts. Naruto didn't answer, she just pressed herself closer to his back. "Everything will be fine. Sasuke is here. And she trusts him more than anyone else in the world." Commentary on 0.1. Another Naruto story. The Ryumayaku, Dragon Vein, is a massive stream of chakra deep within the earth. It is located beneath the ruins of Rorin and was sealed by the 4th Hokage to prevent it from being misused. The greatest test of man is to resist not so much failure as happiness. Didn't notice. She didn't notice. Her own daughter, Kami. How could this even happen? Kushina quickly climbed up the stairs, ignoring Minato's cries. Mikoto walked next to her, equally excited, holding her hand tightly, which gave her some confidence. Her heart was beating feverishly in her chest, its beats echoing in her ears. Fear snaked around everything inside her. The woman was choked by tears that had not yet been shed. Never before had she been so afraid for her middle child. With bated breath, she watched as Mikoto jerked forward and abruptly threw open the door to the room. 3 pairs of eyes immediately stared at her. It was as if a heavy stone had been lifted from her shoulders when she saw her daughter, safe and sound, sitting on the bed, enthusiastically proving something to the blushing Hinata. Without saying a word, Kushina simply appeared next to her in an instant and impulsively hugged her. Her trembling hands clasped behind her shoulders, the woman buried her nose in the golden crown of her daughter's head, feeling tears treacherously rolling down her eyes. "Glory to Kami. Glory to Kami, you're okay." Naruto visibly shuddered in her arms, and then froze, not knowing what to do, but Kushina didn't pay attention to it. She just held her child tightly to herself, whom she and Minato had once condemned to a hard life, and then pushed away. They had built a wall between them and their own child. Fear mixed with guilt painfully twisted everything inside, settling on her tongue as salty tears and bitter regret. She couldn't even imagine what would have happened if the children had not been found. Mum. The scarlet-haired girl shuddered when the blonde's confused and surprised voice reached her ears. The woman pulled back a little, peering into her daughter's face through her watery eyes, noticing small scratches and stopping at her bright blue eyes, just like her Minato's. Blue eyes flows, crystal clear, in which any emotion was clearly reflected, were now looking at her with disbelief and somehow painfully. Her heart was painfully compressed for the umpteenth time, and her throat was sore from tears. Kushina squeezed Naruto's shoulders tighter. Mom, Naruto took a deep breath, as if deciding on something, and then gently placed her hands on her mother's hands, pushing them away from her shoulders, but not letting go. I'm okay, really. We were lucky that Sasuke came to his senses quickly, and Itachi and Naoki and I came on time. Everything is fine, don't worry. And she smiled. Just smiled. Bright, unusual, and completely new, just like the midday sun. The sky in her daughter's eyes warmed and began to sparkle. Kushina literally felt the soft, gentle kisses of the sun's rays on her face, which seemed to slowly take away all the pain and worry. Minato's eyes, and a look like hers, a thought flashes through his head, but Uzumaki has no strength at all to think. Her daughter is fine. The rest doesn't matter. Naruto. Uzumaki shudders once again, but does not dare to raise her head. It is already physically painful for her. Need Sasuke. Need Sasuke urgently. Calm down, I'm here, Kurama said calmly. Before her eyes literally appeared the image of him lying with his muzzle on his paws, lazily watching everything with his attentive gaze. His calmness was gradually transmitted to her. Thank you, friend, Naruto thanks warmly, feeling a pleasant warmth spreading inside him. Why yes, Dad. Minato looks at him distantly, but the relief in his eyes is still visible. The man's hand falls heavily on Naruto's head, tousling the blonde locks that match his own. Mom and Dad were like two suns. Dad shone softly, tenderly, bringing warmth and peace, a sense of security. Mom shone with a bright, blinding light, dispersing the familiar discharge of cheerfulness throughout the body. They shone differently, but for her. Yes, she did not have enough time to get to know them, and for someone her holy faith in her parents may seem stupid and naive. But they did not have time to get to know what she was like. At their first meeting, her father said that he believed in her and would always believe in her, no matter what path she chose, and her mother thanked her for being their child. Her parents gave their lives for her and even after death did not stop loving and believing in her. For an orphan who dreamed of at least catching a glimpse of them, this was more than enough. Yes, they could not raise her, but their love was enough for Naruto to grow up the way she is now. But it's not them. Or is it them? Uzumaki was literally torn apart. Her emotions, her thoughts, her memories, all mixed up with the Naruto of this world. With her mind she knew what was hers and what wasn't, but her heart, her stupid heart, reacted to this Minato and Kushina the same way it did to her parents. Kurama. Listen, Naruto, Kurama began softly. His Jinchuriki was in no condition to talk to her like he usually did. Over the years, Kurama had found the best way to approach Uzumaki, and over time, guiding her had become something routine and, frankly, enjoyable. Yes, this is a different story, and their attitude towards you is different too. But they are your parents. They were there, they are here, and they will be anywhere else. Wherever we end up, your parents will be the same snotty little people who would die for their child. I should know. The fox paused for a second, searching for the right words to finish his thoughts. There is nothing wrong with the fact that when you look at them, you see your parents. Don't look at it so categorically. In the end, what makes them Minato and Kushina is unchangeable. Consider this a chance to make up for what both you and they missed. You're probably right, Kurama. His eyes began to tear up treacherously. Kurama next to him gave him so much strength and confidence. Naruto was still standing on his feet only because of him. Gratitude mixed with tenderness overwhelmed him from head to toe, and the Biju, perfectly feeling the mood of his Jinchuriki, chuckled good-naturedly. Out of the corner of her eye, she noticed the door open silently, and the next second, Mikoto-san rushed towards it. Sasuke. Naruto, pursing her lips, looked at the Uchiha frozen in his mother's arms, and saw herself a few seconds ago. Kushina did not move away from her, all that was left for her was to smile encouragingly at him. Everything is fine. Sorry for bothering you, it came out a little sharply, but Sasuke couldn't do otherwise now. Everything okay? Are you sure? You're not hurt? Mikoto pulled away from her son and looked him over, mentally sighing with relief. Her boy looked battered, but aside from a few minor scratches, there was no visible damage. At least not on the outside. It's all right, Mom. I'd like to sit down, the brunette answered with a hint, shoving his irritation deep down. Another universe or not. He was not going to be rude to his mother under any circumstances. With his father, everything was easier, he had already managed to get a cold look and a disappointed shake of the head. But now it didn't matter. Oh, of course, darling, forgive me. I'm so inattentive. It was fortunate that they moved during the abduction. Nodding to his mother, Uchiha moved towards the bed Naruto was sitting on, ignoring the chair his brother had pulled up next to him, and sat down heavily next to her, his shoulder brushing hers. He would have stretched out on her lap, but Uzumaki would hardly appreciate such an impulse now, so he had to settle for little. Mikoto and Kushina exchanged glances, and Itachi remained standing there, thoughtfully examining the chair in his hands, and then, putting it back, turned his gaze to the children. It seemed like the tension in the air could be touched with your hands. Naruto took a deep breath and wanted to say something stupid or funny, but Minato approached before she could. Well, there is no damage, only Naruto's chakra channels burned out, though not very much, and it is not dangerous. At the last phrase the Hokage narrowed his eyes strangely, in which icy calm splashed. Naruto felt uneasy. For the next week you are banned from using chakra. Well, there will be no problems with that, the blonde said a little more quietly, somehow disappointedly pursing his lips. Minato. What is he talking about? Uzumaki asked her only assistant in surprise. The Naruto here is your complete opposite, remember? She barely even reached the level of an academy student, the fox chuckled in response. Listen, Naruto, you should do something in your spirit, I really want to admire their faces, he continued much more cheerfully, and Naruto could swear that his eyes sparkled dreamily. Kurama's playful mood was passed on to her, so the girl decided to follow her furry friend's advice. Knowing that this was nothing like Namake's Naruto, the blonde jumped up from her seat and shouted cheerfully. Then we can go home, Databeo. And would have fallen to the floor if Sasuke hadn't reacted quickly. Dobe, Uchiha hissed through his teeth, but when he encountered a guilty look, he sighed humbly. Naruto is right, if everything is okay, it will be better if we rest at home. Why yes, Naoki nodded confusedly, looking with all his eyes at his sister, who was carefreely hanging on the small Uchiha. Naruto, you can't walk normally yet, I myself. The elder Namake's fell silent, meeting Sasuke's darkened, though, where else could it be, eyes. The brunette jerked the shoulder that the blonde was leaning on, and she moved away without further ado. The next second, the women gasped softly when the Uchiha silently squatted down, and a satisfied Naruto climbed onto his back, comfortably placing her chin on his shoulder. Sasuke, she is my sister after all, and it will be better. I myself. It's like steel ringing. Naoki cringed, casting a questioning glance at Itachi, but was met with his confused face. He didn't dare look at the adults. Hinata, your father is waiting for you downstairs, Kushina smiled softly, coming to from a slight shock. The girl started fiddling with the hem of her t-shirt in response and nodded silently. The brunette raised her head and, meeting a wide smile, blushed. See you at the academy, Hinata. Why yes, Naruto-chan. Uzumaki closed her eyes contentedly and returned her head back to Uchiha's shoulder. Their families were trailing behind, and they still looked surprised, so Naruto couldn't help but quietly begin. Sasuke, don't you think you're too? I don't care. But it doesn't matter, Naruto. They'll get through it. Oh, come on. The Kyuubi Jinchuriki puffed out her cheeks in resentment at the guy's harshness, but the next second she tightly crossed her legs on the brunette's waist and shouted cheerfully. Carry me, my faithful horse. A child, Sasuke chuckled, shifting his grip on Naruto more comfortably and listening to her laughter with pleasure. From behind, their duo was stared at with surprised and distrustful glances. "We'll talk tomorrow," Naruto whispered softly into the Uchiha's ear when their group reached the Namikaze family's house. Sasuke nodded and reluctantly let her go, heading towards his family. After saying goodbye to the Uchihas, Minato opened the door, but before he could take a step, a whirlwind swept past him, knocking the confused Naruto off his feet. "Nei-chan." The Kyuubi Jinchuriki, her eyes wide open, looked into the dark blue eyes opposite, in which tears flashed every now and then. The boy, her younger brother, was tightly clenching his fists on her shoulders, and his legs were wrapped around her waist. "Where have you been? I've been waiting all day for us to go play, and you're still not here." Sorry, Akira, no, it's impossible to get used to," flashed through her mind, and under Kurama's loud laughter, Naruto hesitantly hugged the child, gently stroking his head, as she did with Konohamaru in childhood when he was upset about something. "Something happened to me, but now everything is fine. Let's do it this way, I'll rest a little, and then we'll play together, okay?" The girl smiled cheerfully, watching with some pleasure as the tears dissolved in the child's eyes. It seemed that the old Naruto loved her brother very much. In confirmation of her thoughts, her heart somehow familiarly ached from tenderness, just like with Konohamaru, but much stronger. "Nei-chan?" "Yes," the blonde asked with a smile, laughing as she watched the child's confused expression. "You're smiling. Is that bad?" Naruto froze for a second at the strange comment, shook her head and, picking up her brother who laughed merrily, ran into the house. "No, not at all. You know, I'm here today." Well, this is her new life. She will have to start all over again. She is no longer an orphan and outcast of the village, but she will have to sweat here too. Each time there are new difficulties, but when did that ever bother her? She was never in the habit of complaining, and over time she realized that these difficulties make her stronger. And she's not alone. Kurama and Sasuke are nearby. So she's now Naruto's Namikaze. And she will definitely become Hokage. Commentary on 0.2. Mockery of Fate. July 31, 2019. Number 4 in the top, Get by Genre Experiment. Number 22 in the top, Get by Genre Psychology. Number 50 in the top, Get by Genre Time Travelers. Number 38 in the top, Get by Genre Friendship. Number 25 in the top, Get by Genre Angst. Number 25 in the top, Get by Genre Hurt/Comfort. Number 13 in the top, Get in the ER genre, Established Relationship. I don't know what to say about this chapter. It's a little shorter, but I don't want to burden you right away. We'll move on gradually. I hope you like it. Thank you for your feedback, it is very motivating and inspiring. ========================================================================================================================Steps towards. Commentary on 0.3. Steps towards. June 8, 2019. Number 10 in the top, Get by Genre Experiment. Number 43 in the top, Get by Genre Psychology. Number 50 in the top, Get by Genre Angst. Number 22 in the top, Get in the ER genre, Established Relationship. I apologize for such a delay. What I was so afraid of happened. I started additional classes. I am in my last year of studies, in addition to this stupid illness, from which I have been treated for God knows how long. My time has significantly decreased, but I promise you that I will try as much as possible. Thank you so much for waiting. And for the 116 likes too. I'm so happy, honestly. I didn't think this work would find any response. Thank you. Diligence is only needed by the smart, but it is usually found among fools. Nei-chan? That's it. Okay. Come on, let's run on. Akira looked at his sister with his big eyes, and then, shrugging his shoulders, ran back into the house with a laugh. Naruto gritted her teeth and cursed her body in her mind. She had been playing with Akira for 2 hours now, and everything hurt like after her battle with Madara. Shaking muscles, shortness of breath. No stamina. Horrible, just horrible. She chose to ignore Kurama's caustic comments and loud laughter. Taking a deep breath, Naruto headed home, where she found a contented Akira, who was devouring pancakes and cheerfully telling something to his mother. Kushina smiled softly at her and immediately returned her attention to her youngest son. Realizing that the youngest had forgotten about her and had completely switched to his mother, the blonde decided to go up to her room to rest a bit, and then go to the training ground to practice. The girl passed by a shelf of books, and her gaze caught on one of them. The Tale of a Fearless Shinobi. Goosebumps ran all over her body, and her heart stopped for a second. Namikaze licked her dry lips and, going up to the shelf, with a trembling hand took out the necessary book. Her fingers gently slid over the cover, ran over the inscription, as if remembering everything again. Naruto? Kushina looked into the living room and, seeing her frozen daughter, became worried. Is everything okay? Yes, of course, Mom. I'll go to my room and read, okay? Of course, Uzumaki nodded in surprise, following her daughter's figure with a confused look. The blonde smiled at her one last time and disappeared onto the second floor. Slamming the door softly, Naruto hesitated for a second before entering the room. She felt uneasy in this strange, familiar home and was unlikely to get used to it anytime soon. This room was different from her previous one, everything was neatly folded, everything around radiated warmth and comfort. Therefore, it was a stranger to Naruto. With a heavy sigh, the blonde nevertheless entered the room and fell heavily onto the bed. Her gaze caught on the mirror next to the closet. A child was looking at her. Just a child. She hadn't had such a look for a long time. Downtrodden? And her whole appearance was somehow faded and tired. It reminded her of something. Naruto, trembling all over, buried her face in her knees. Sobs burst from her chest, breaking against the ringing silence. The anger had long since receded, and now everything inside was torn apart by resentment and misunderstanding. The girl raised her head and looked at the reflection opposite. Large eyes, overflowing with tears, red nose and cheeks, disheveled hair. A downtrodden look. Sniffling, the girl got up from the cold floor and went to the mirror. Looking into the blue eyes opposite, the blonde was thinking hard about something, and after a few seconds she wiped her wet cheeks and nose with the sleeve of her orange jumpsuit. And she smiled broadly. Strong people are often much more defenseless than weak ones. During a hurricane, flexible reeds bend and rustle, but pine trees simply break and die forever. Strong people are not responsible for themselves at all. And not even for their loved ones. They are responsible for the entire world that has fallen into their orbit, because strength attracts to itself. Strong people are not healthier or stronger than everyone else. They just know for sure that they have no right to faint and die while someone still depends on them. And strong people are also very lonely. And not at all because they don't tolerate anyone near them. It's just, they are strong, aren't they? It never occurs to anyone that they too can be in pain, scared, lonely, simply sad. Strong, silent people walk the earth. It is not always easy, not always pleasant, not always comfortable with them, but reliable. This is the very cavalry that always comes to the rescue at the last moment. Uzumaki smiled faintly. There were moments like this when she began to think. And was afraid of it. But now she had nothing left. The mirror in front of her simply did not disappear, and she did not have the strength to tear her gaze away from the broken but not broken reflection. A heavy sigh escaped her chest against her will. It was hard. It was really too hard. Naruto closed her eyes painfully, and then looked down at the book in her hands. Her fingertips slid over the rough cover, and then carefully opened the book and flipped through several pages. Chapter 1, My Name Is. Well, nothing could happen if instead of a few hours of sleep she read a little. She needed strength to pull herself together. It was getting dark. The evening sky is the last chord of the passing day. Tired, it is somehow especially calm and majestic. Its depth literally absorbed the gaze, creating an extraordinary feeling of complete balance and peace. But this peace had nothing in common with self-admiration, but on the contrary, it forced one to calmly and carefully re-evaluate one's thoughts, views, feelings, and make the only right decision, so necessary for the further path. Twilight gently pulled Konoha into its embrace, giving a chance to rest from the daily bustle. Minato lazily walked through the streets of the village, smiling warmly when he came across children, nodding softly to his subordinates. He walked this way on purpose, to enjoy such peaceful and truly magical evenings for a little longer. Nothing warmed the Hokage's heart more than a calm and peaceful village. Walking past the training grounds, the blonde remembered a recent conversation with his son. The mission was successfully completed, Hokage-sama. Minato turned his absent-minded gaze to his son and nodded slightly. The red-haired man handed over the report and straightened up, glaring at his father. Anything else? Namikaze raised his eyebrow questioningly, looking at his son in confusion. Pa, Naoki said thoughtfully, and Minato became wary. During working hours, his eldest son addressed him exclusively as Hokage-sama. When you get home, stop by the third training ground. For what? Just do it, huh? Okay, the blonde nodded in surprise, watching his son's back. Chuckling under his breath, the man slowly walked towards the training ground. And froze, having bumped into the blonde crown. It was hard to believe, but it was, in fact, his daughter. The keen eye of a shinobi noted many scratches and some more serious wounds. The orange jacket was lying not far from the girl, and she herself was concentratedly delivering one blow after another. Minato found this picture too unrealistic. He, like no one else, knew with what wariness and dislike his middle child treated shinobi and everything connected with them. She even studied theory with great reluctance. There was no talk of her starting to train. But now he saw something completely different. Naruto stubbornly struck, sometimes freezing and thinking about something, and then starting over. Suddenly the girl screamed briefly and fell to the ground, and Minato was about to rush to her, but froze in place. Naruto, his Naruto, clenched her teeth and began to rise to her feet. She winced in pain but returned to her training. And Namikaze mentally asked himself, how long had she been training here, if she had brought herself to this state? A piercing tenderness choked his heart for a second, and then everything inside him warmed up. Minato couldn't help but smile slightly as he watched his daughter puff out her cheeks in a funny way. He couldn't remember the last time he felt something like that for her, and he felt a bit ashamed. He thought he had come to terms with his middle child's reluctance to become a shinobi, but it turned out he was simply pushing her away. He was a lousy father. Namikaze Jr. struck again, and then fell heavily on her back, snorting in displeasure. She couldn't hold back her smile again. Don't push yourself too hard, or you'll end up in the hospital. Again. Naruto froze, and then rolled over onto her stomach, looking at him in surprise. Dad? Minato felt something inside him tighten and then suddenly release. The usual daddy sounded completely different. Too much trepidation, some kind of disbelief. The voice sounded like the girl was on the verge of tears. And her eyes shone in a completely special way. Naruto was surprisingly alive. And from this, his heart somehow ached with relief. Daddy, Daddy, Minato chuckled kindly, approaching her. How long have you been here? Naruto rested her cheek on her folded hands in front of her and comically stuck out her lower lip. About 3 hours, maybe more. Naruto, the blonde looked at his daughter with a heavy gaze, who frowned in confusion, and then sighed. Don't push yourself so hard, you're not strong enough yet. Okay? The younger Namikaze looked at him for a few seconds. And then nodded obediently. Minato couldn't hold back a strange impulse and gently brushed the strands of hair that had fallen on the child's face, gently touching the skin. Naruto froze and looked at her with that look again. Not Naruto's. Something wrong? The blonde mumbled something unintelligible, and then pressed her cheek to the warm palm. Minato smiled again. Let's go home, Naruto. Namikaze turned his back to her and squatted down. For a second, everything around him seemed to freeze, and Minato thought he could hear his own heartbeat. And everything died away when he heard a light rustling sound from behind, and then a warm little body pressed itself against his back. The blonde carefully hugged his daughter by the knees and smiled when she wrapped her arms around his neck and buried her chin in his shoulder. Thank you, she said uncertainly. For what? Well, for helping? Are you asking or stating? Minato said mockingly, but he felt uneasy hearing something like that from his daughter. Had they really grown so distant that simple help seemed like something to be thanked for to his own child? Oh, come on, Naruto said resentfully, hiding her reddened face in her father's shoulder. The Hokage couldn't help but laugh softly. His laughter broke the girl's slight tension, and she relaxed completely, pressing herself closer to her father's warm back. There was a warmth and comfort in the air that was unusual for Naruto. She felt safe. Naruto, tell me, how are you doing? What exactly do you want to know? All. Just 3 letters, and Naruto literally came to life. She hugged her father's neck tighter and began to tell everything that the previous Naruto had kept silent about, adding something of her own and listening attentively when the man shared something in response. Many followed them with surprised glances, because it was rare to catch the middle child of the Hokage somewhere outside the house. But surprise gradually gave way to a soft light, because the girl was shining too brightly, and the smile on the lips of their ruler was too warm. 2 bright spots, 2 sources of light, they seemed to sparkle and illuminate everything around. You know, Dad, Naruto began, pausing for a second. I'm going to become Hokage. Minato froze in place, and then resumed walking. You hated everything related to shinobi. I want to protect everything that is dear to me, came the immediate response, and all the cheerful and mischievous notes instantly disappeared from the child's voice. That's why I will become Hokage. Even better than you. Namikaze did not know how to react to his daughter's revelation and listened to himself. Incredible tenderness, slight trepidation, and some kind of childish delight. The man smiled easily and said softly, "Then I'll keep an eye on you." Naruto nodded, flashing a happy smile, but a second later she gasped. Wow, I forgot my jacket. It's okay, we'll send Naoki for her. And he wouldn't mind being a gopher? Well, you know, few people would go against your father, Minato said importantly. And listened with pleasure to the mischievous laughter. For the first time in a long time, he truly feels a connection with his daughter. I didn't want to get up at all. There was a pleasant emptiness in my head, it seemed as if Naruto had gone deaf, but for some reason it didn't cause any discomfort, only some strange feeling of peace. I didn't want to get up at all. But of course, she was not allowed to enjoy the pleasant peace. Naruto-chan, a soft voice was heard through the vacuum that had formed in her head, and then a warm hand gently touched her shoulder. Tsunami-san, the girl croaked, opening her eyes as Tezuna's worried daughter leaned in front of her. You're finally awake, the woman exclaimed joyfully, helping the blonde into a sitting position. What happened? The kunoichi asked cautiously. I remember when we buried Zabuza and Haku. And then you collapsed, exhausted, Sakura chuckled, coming closer and kneeling next to her. How are you feeling? Honestly. Okay, Uzumaki nods decisively. Not daring to anger her friend. Only the body is somehow heavy. Well, that's normal, you were pretty beaten up after all. And Sasuke? I'm fine, the Uchiha's calm voice reassured Naruto, who had suddenly jumped up, and the girl turned her gaze to him. He looked, indeed, much better and could already stand on his feet with confidence. The only reminders of that battle were the thin scratches all over his body that had not completely disappeared. The blonde exhaled barely audibly, trying to drive away the images of her wounded comrade that appeared before her eyes. Her shoulders sagged in relaxation. The weakness will go away as soon as you rest a little, Haruno lightly tugged the girl's ponytail, and when she turned her absent-minded gaze to her and nodded, she rose from her seat. We'll leave you, but please, Naruto, just lie down for a while, okay? Kakashi-san is with his father, they'll be back soon. Tsunami smiled softly when she noticed the blue-eyed girl shaking her head from side to side. I'll call you when dinner is ready. Okay, someone else's concern warmed her pleasantly from the inside. Naruto smiled gratefully, wincing because of her hoarse voice. Thank you, Tsunami-san, Sakura-chan. You're welcome, dear, the builder's daughter squeezed the blonde's hands encouragingly and, standing up, followed Haruno out. When the door closed behind the woman, Naruto looked again at Sasuke, who, without moving from his place, looked at her with an unreadable gaze. The feeling that something needed to be said did not leave the teenagers, but no one was going to break the silence between them, even though it was tense. Uzumaki swallowed the lump in her throat and squeezed the blanket in her hands to stop the trembling in her body. Just a few hours ago. In front of my eyes. In my arms. I saw for the first time how someone's life fades away. Breathing becomes weak and the body grows cold. Just now he was moving, breathing. And then I no longer felt a living aura, as if I was holding a doll in my hands. It was so strange. You shouldn't have defended me. The blonde ponytails twitched when the girl sharply lowered her head. Sasuke took a deep breath through clenched teeth and knelt down in front of her, almost touching her. It's too late to talk about it, don't you think? The brunette pulled the blanket out of her hands and threw it over their heads, as if protecting them from the outside world. He didn't even think about moving away from Uzumaki. Silence reigned again. But this silence did not frighten, it did not press, making you feel empty inside, did not strain. This silence calmed. It softly covered you with its embrace, making you relax. Not think about anything. Not do anything. Sasuke. What do you want? I'm going to hug you now, the blonde whispered in a trembling voice. Uchiha didn't answer, and when warm hands closed behind his back, he simply placed his hand on the top of his girlfriend's head. Naruto was somehow painfully squeezing his sweater in her fingers, listening to the uneven heartbeat of the brunette. Sasuke thought that he understood her. He would also be confused if someone, even a comrade, gave their life for him. He could not explain his actions, but he did not regret them either. He could not let this fool die there, could he? The genin turned his gaze to the golden crown, and for a second it seemed to him as if he was looking into a crooked mirror. At his own crooked reflection. Small, fragile, ready to fall apart from any movement, but desperately struggling. Uzumaki did not make a sound. The silence that reigned was broken only by her uneven breathing, but her silence spoke louder and more than any words. And for some reason he, Sasuke, understood this perfectly well. Next time I will protect you. Uchiha holds the girl by the waist with his other hand, staring absent-mindedly into space. Perhaps for the first time in a long time he feels that he is not alone. Naruto's eyes widened sharply, staring at the ceiling. She was shaking slightly, and sat up, clenching her hands into fists. Why she remembered this, Naruto didn't know, but from the old and such distant memories. Her heart ached unpleasantly, and goosebumps ran down her spine. Sadness and melancholy instantly rolled over the blonde, washing away all the previous feelings of joy and delight when she and her father returned home. The whole family met them, surprised, but judging by the happily shining eyes of the mother and the satisfied grin of her brother, pleasantly surprised. The girl looked at the clock, which showed 3 o'clock in the morning. Family is, of course, wonderful, and she is happy. But it has been 3 days since she was here, and she has not been anywhere except home and training grounds, and has not had contact with anyone except family members. She needs Sasuke. And her subconscious mind successfully reminded her of this. == 0.4 Spider Lily == Commentary on 0.4 Spider Lily. I ask you to forgive me for my disappearance. I can't promise that it won't happen again, but I will really try to write little by little. Thanks to everyone who waited and remembered about this work. I hope you enjoy it. The spider lily is a symbol of separation. It blooms when the leaves fall. And the leaves grow when the flowers have already faded. Understand as you wish. Oh, I've had several suggestions about tautology marked in PB. Guys, these aren't mistakes, they were written that way on purpose, no need to correct them. The main rule of life is not to let people or circumstances break you. Itachi loves his brother. He probably loves him more than anyone in his family. Sasuke is the only reason he would go against all his principles, and for him he would betray his home village. Itachi considers himself a good older brother, despite the fact that Sasuke often gets angry with him and sometimes he doesn't have enough time. But still, Itachi thought he knew his brother well. Now, looking at how he was training, Itachi doubted it a little. 3 days had passed since the kidnapping. When they returned home, Sasuke was forbidden to leave the house, and he spent all his time either in the dojo or in the backyard. He barely communicated with his family, limiting himself to a couple of phrases and barely noticeable smiles. This alarmed Itachi. He missed the moment when the shining eyes of his beloved younger brother became covered with an icy crust, and the smile simply faded. The same expression of imperturbability and barely noticeable melancholy was stuck on Sasuke's face. Itachi was worried. "Sasuke, breakfast is ready." The Uchiha watched carefully as Sasuke broke the wooden boards with one blow, and then turned to him. He was much more agitated today. "Morning, Nai-san." "Good morning." Itachi gently ran his hand over his brother's shaggy head, relieved to see that he didn't flinch. He hadn't let anyone touch him for 3 days. Breakfast was surprisingly lively. Even the father smiled from time to time, listening animatedly to his wife, who was trying, perhaps, for all of them. Itachi smiled too, but much softer and more openly, the way only he could, the way his family loved him, and the smile that Shursui called special. The mother beamed even brighter, and everything inside the brunette warmed up. "Darling, would you like more?" Mikoto asked her youngest son warmly, to which he shook his head and pointed to his plate, as if to say, "I'm not done yet." "You have assignments today, right?" "Yes." "I'll go out with you, I need to meet Kushina." "Okay," Sasuke nodded in response, putting the chopsticks back in place. He reached for a cup of tea and accidentally hit his elbow on a plate of rice. The loud sound of breaking dishes cut through his ears, and then silence reigned. I'll clean it up now." Sasuke ignored her. He silently stared at the broken fragments with a completely unreadable expression on his face, but his eyes were burning with a doom that Itachi couldn't understand. "Naruto, my dear, haven't you forgotten anything?" "No, Mom, let's go faster." I'm coming." Although it was only morning, the sun was shining high in the sky, scorching with its scorching breath. Its insightful rays were jumping here and there, peering into the windows of houses, sliding along the roofs of buildings, sometimes encountering obstacles in the form of fluffy clouds. Konoha was bustling. As always, she was in a hurry to live, not slowing down for a second. Parallel world or not, but she couldn't treat her village Naruto differently. Mom wished a happy day to passers-by, waved her hand to them and smiled affectionately at the children running along the road. Her radiance was no less than that of the sun. Naruto's heart sank when she noticed the familiar black hedgehog ahead. She hadn't seen Sasuke for 3 days, and none of her relatives could, and never would, give her even a little bit of the peace that Sasuke gave her. She missed him, and it was unbearable to her to think that he was nearby, but not close, alone. He was confused, and he was alone. Her legs shot forward faster than she could comprehend, and in a second she crashed into him, locking her arms around his neck and pressing hard, as if trying to melt into him. Sasuke hugs him back and something inside Naruto breaks because he's in pain. He's not over it, he's in pain and he's alone and he still can't accept it. Finally. "Is everything okay?" Uzumaki wanted to cry because she missed Sasuke, his voice, how calm and soft it sounded, and how it settled inside her like a soft coolness. "Why yes," the blonde rests her forehead on his shoulder for a few seconds, and then looks up with a shining gaze. The Uchiha seemed to flinch. They reach the academy in silence. Sasuke stays close, touching her with his shoulder. Naruto immediately feels how uneasy he is. When they enter the classroom, all conversation immediately stops. Naruto feels uncomfortable because the silence is thick and unpleasant. It leaves an unpleasant aftertaste, and makes him want to shrug his shoulders. Her gaze catches on the figure sitting in the 3rd row, and the girl immediately perks up. "Hinata." The blonde's ringing voice breaks against the classroom walls and starts the mechanism. The students start whispering, some go back to their work, and some still watch them closely. "Gee, good morning, Naruto-chan." Sasuke-kun. Hyuga smiles shyly as Namikaze walks, jumps up to her, and nods to Sasuke standing behind her. How are you?" "We're fine, thank you." Naruto smiles a lot, and no, Hinata can't stop being surprised by how bright that smile can be. "And how are you? Did you have a good rest?" "Yes, they took care of me." Naruto wanted to say something else, but she was interrupted by the sound of the door suddenly opening. "I'm first." An unpleasant shiver ran through Naruto's body, and Sasuke's back instantly froze, and if it weren't for the situation, Naruto would have definitely laughed at him, but all she could do was look with quiet horror at the approaching Haruno and Yamanaka. "Good morning, Sasuke-kun," Sakura said, blushing. She didn't pay any attention to Naruto. "Can I sit next to you?" I should be the one sitting with him, and indignant Ino pushed the green-eyed girl aside. No, it's me. No, it's me. Sasuke snorted irritably and, grabbing Naruto by the elbow, pushed her towards the desk. The blonde plopped down on the chair in surprise, and the Uchiha silently sat down next to her. Naruto wasn't embarrassed by much, but now she felt awkward once again. What's the matter, Itachi? You're more thoughtful than usual. The Uchiha jerked in surprise and turned his head towards Naoki. The scarlet-haired man looked at him questioningly, worry flashing in his gaze. Of course, he was thinking about Sasuke. All these 3 days he was thinking about him, or rather, about his behavior. Sasuke grew up in strict discipline. He, like all Uchihas, was calm and unperturbed, but he was never so detached. Sometimes even cold-blooded. Itachi can't understand what's wrong with his little brother. And he can't get the look in Sasuke's eyes, the way he stared at the broken plate. He looked at it as if it wasn't the broken pieces of the dish, but his life. There was something familiar in that look. But something he had never noticed in his brother. Sasuke seems to a completely different person. Friend, are you dying or something? Itachi didn't notice how he said the end of the sentence out loud, and now Namikaze stared at him with a barely noticeable mockery, but the anxiety did not go away. I'm starting to worry. It's Sasuke. Itachi has known Naoki since childhood. He's used to his barbs and, at times, black humor, so he simply didn't pay attention to his words. He's just not acting like he usually does. It worries me. Namikaze frowned and chewed his lower lip thoughtfully. Itachi knew how much this habit irritated him. I think I understand you. Understand? Yeah, Naoki put his hands behind his head and closed his eyes for a second. Naruto isn't acting like he usually does either. Well, she's changed for the better, I guess? She smiles all the time, she laughs all the time and disappears into the training grounds. Mom is always glowing, and Dad is just bursting with pride. And to me, the scarlet-haired man fell silent for a second and stared at Itachi with an open gaze. The Uchiha shrugged. Sometimes Naoki could be scarier than any Uchiha. I don't care, to be honest. Doesn't matter? Ugh, I didn't put it that way. The guy awkwardly scratched the back of his neck. I care about Naruto. I mean, look, I've been babysitting her since she was a baby, and I know her better than anyone. She was always quiet and shy, she wasn't an Uzumaki at all, we had nothing in common, but I loved her like that. And now she's all bright and energetic and eager to become a ninja, and I don't know what made her change so much, but I accept it because she's still my little sister, and I love her. If it's convenient for her. Well, so be it. Naoki fell silent, still glaring at him, but then he softened. A small smile graced his face, and the boy threw his arm over his friend's shoulder. We don't know what happened there, Itachi, and we don't know what's going on in their heads. All we can do is just find a way to approach them again. Well, go ahead, tell us something about yourself. It was really weird. It was really, really weird. And even unpleasant. He looked at Kakashi's face, which expressed universal sorrow and fatigue, and realized how tired he himself was. Sasuke had only been here a few days, but it felt like a lifetime. The sound of broken dishes was still ringing in his ears, and the Uchiha wanted to break something else, just to calm down. This Kakashi is almost the same, except there is less sadness in his eyes, and he is a little more alive. Sasuke looks at this man and thinks of his mentor, one of those rare people for whom he has warm feelings. But he is not that, not his Kakashi. Sasuke feels like he's going crazy. What exactly do you want to know? Naruto's voice is as clear as ever, and it involuntarily dispels bad thoughts. Well, your hobbies, dreams, what you like, what you don't like and all that stuff. Kakashi doesn't even try to look less bored. Sasuke starts laughing. Just for a second. Maybe you first? That's right. We don't even know your name. Haruno looked at the teacher with interest. The Uchiha suppressed a sigh. If someone had told him a few years ago that he would miss Sakura, he would have cut the Joker into tiny pieces with the blade of Kusanagi. But the truth is, he misses his normal Sakura a little. My name is Hatake Kakashi. What I like and what I don't is none of your business. Dreams? Well, I have many hobbies. Well, that's to be expected. You didn't say anything. Now you. Let's start with the girls. Haruno Hatake ignored the question and looked at her expectantly. I'm Haruno Sakura. What do I love? More precisely, who? She blushed deeply and looked at Sasuke. Favorite activity, again a slip-up towards the Uchiha. I dream of, she didn't finish, she just muttered something and blushed even more. I see, the copyist drawled resignedly. What don't you like? Naruto. Hey. For what? At this age, girls are more interested in boys than training. And there's also jealousy, the man glanced at Uzumaki. I hope at least Naruto won't be like that. The copy ninja sighed tiredly and mentally noted that he needed to talk to Rin. She could probably do something about Haruno. Next. My name is Uzumaki Naruto. The blonde proudly lifted her chin up and smiled widely. Sakura hung for a moment, and Kakashi stared at her in surprise. I love my friends and my family, and I don't love. Well, not much. I have a dream, I want. No, she shook her head, then smiled even brighter. One day I will become Hokage and surpass all the previous ones, then I will be strong enough to protect my friends and change the shinobi world. Change this world? Yeah. Hatake noticed the corners of Uchiha's lips twitch and his expression relaxed. Naruto's words left a strange effect. I wonder if Minato-sensei knows about his daughter's dreams? An unusual dream, the blonde shrugged and put her hands behind her head. For a second, Hatake saw Obito instead of her. And the last one. My name is Uchiha Sasuke. The brunette's voice was calm and unperturbed as usual. He clasped his fingers together and rested his chin on them. I love my loved ones and the village. And there are many things I don't like. I don't have a dream, it's more of a goal. I will become the strongest shinobi to protect everything that is dear to me and become the shadow of my village. What an unusual goal. Well, you are all unique and interesting. Tomorrow will be our first mission. Mission? What? Survival test. Survival test? You said we'd have a mission, not a test. Sakura shouted indignantly. We passed all the tests back at the academy. This is a different test. Then what kind of test is this? Naruto looked at the ash-haired man carefully. This really does make me feel very nostalgic. Hatake laughed, which scared Sakura a little. What's funny? No, nothing. It's just that if I start explaining, you'll get scared. Huh? Naruto now understands his teacher. Sakura's scared face is actually quite funny. 27 students graduate this year, only 9 will remain, the rest will return to the academy. In general, 1 in 3 will pass the test, the probability of failure is 66%. But we passed the exams. What's the point of them then? It was a test of your potential, the sensei answered calmly. What? That's all for today. Kakashi was fed up with useless questions, so he stood up abruptly, forcing Haruno to shut up. The strange thing was that she was the only one asking questions. Tomorrow we'll check who gets through and who doesn't. We'll start at 5 in the morning sharp. Oh, and I advise you not to have breakfast, otherwise you'll throw up. Naruto lay on the grass, looking thoughtfully up at something. The night sky was like a blue-black canvas on which some artist had accidentally spilled paint, splashing particles of twinkling stars so distant and so cold. Then the moon floated out from behind the horizon, pouring out its shimmering radiance, and as far as his silver eye reached, it would disturb the depths of the night. It's quite late and she should be home, but she doesn't want to move. Sasuke is sitting nearby, and his presence is enough to make her feel safe. Sasuke. In response, a light rustling sound was heard, and the next second, strong hands were on the sides of her head, and the Uchiha himself was hanging over her. What? Blue eyes slid softly over his face, noting his tired appearance and unusual pallor. Naruto gently ran her hand over his cheek and involuntarily shuddered when the Uchiha touched his forehead to hers. Sasuke, the brunette lazily opened his eyes and looked at her. Everything will be fine, okay? Everything will be fine now. Her heart sank as the corners of his lips twitched upward and the night sky in his eyes warmed. Equals 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 0.5. The abyss calls to the abyss equals 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 equals. Cold. His mind is clouded and his ears feel like they're clogged with cotton wool. He hears a rustling sound and only after a few seconds does he realize it's the sound of rain. His clothes are sticking uncomfortably to his skin and the scratches all over his body are starting to itch. He feels something hard against his back, like a wall. He feels it, but he doesn't feel it. Or maybe he doesn't care. He doesn't know, he's not sure. Cold. He did it. He did it? Yes, that's right, he did it. He was finally able to catch the thin edge of that thread that had been looming before his eyes all this time, but was incredibly far away. He was able to achieve his goal, which he stubbornly refused to label as a dream, because that word was too pure for this. He did it, yes. So what now? Cold, cold, cold. Raindrops like crystal shards break against his shoulders, pressing, pressing, pressing. His wet bangs stick to his cheeks, some strands fall into his eyes. The air around him is unbearably heavy, and he can't shake the feeling that he's suffocating. There's an invisible weight on his chest, and, oh yes, he's suffocating. The smell of blood hits his nose. He knows that smell. Every shinobi knows that smell, every one of them is saturated with it. It follows them like a shadow every second, not allowing them to forget who they are, and what they are going through. He probably should get out of here. He doesn't care, but he should get out of here. And yet, why is he so cold? Sasuke woke up with a jerk. The picture before his eyes became blurry for a second, and pain pierced his temples, but a second later he stared blindly at the wall of his room. His throat was dry, but he was still too out of it to reach for the glass on the nightstand. He sniffed the air, ignoring the unpleasant burning in his lungs, and leaned his elbows on his knees. This isn't the first time he's had a nightmare. Or whatever it is. He hasn't been able to sleep properly since the day he got here. The brunette gritted his teeth in irritation. The Uchihas were emotionally unstable. No matter what anyone said, no matter how they behaved, their clan was extremely sensitive when it came to emotions, even if it showed itself almost insignificantly. To others, the Uchihas are burning. They work more than anyone else with consciousness, with feelings, and they burn silently, without realizing it. Sasuke knows it. He's been through it, he hates it. But he can't do anything about it. Memories dance in the shadows of his thoughts. They follow him, leaving behind scorched marks and a bitter, disgusting taste. They reek of blood, and Sasuke hates the smell, because it drags him back into the darkness he once escaped. Cute? Uchiha doesn't flinch when there's a soft knock on the door, and then his mother's figure appears in the doorway. He looks at her silently, and when he notices that she's tensed up slightly, his gaze softens. You asked to be woken up, the woman reminded him, carefully entering the room. Mikoto opens the window with a light movement of her hand, letting in cool air, and the skin on his arms breaks out in goosebumps. Breakfast is ready. You're going to Naruto-chan, right? Itachi will go with you, he has to meet Naoki-kun. He wants to step into a hot shower and peel his skin off. He wants to find Naruto and hide somewhere far away, so no one will find them, so no one will dump the problems of the whole damn world on them anymore. He wants to stop feeling this. He wants to smash something to smithereens and pretend that the shards are all that bothers him. Of course, he just wants to. Instead, he nods silently. Somewhere outside, the sun was slowly rising over the hills. A new day had already begun. So you have a test today, yes? Yes. Are you nervous? Not really, Sasuke shrugged indifferently, continuing to look at his feet. Itachi didn't answer, but he heard a tired sigh. He feels awkward. He feels bad, he really doesn't want to talk to Itachi. He doesn't know how to stop avoiding him, doesn't know how to stop expecting a trick, how to just stop. Sasuke thought he could overcome it, leave it behind, but Itachi's body lies lifeless before him. The rain seems to be pouring all its fury on them. but he just watches and watches. Itachi lies dead. Sasuke killed him. He did it, he can breathe easy, because he did what he wanted for so many years. Itachi is dead, and it seems Sasuke is too. From the inside. The brunette clenched his fists unnoticeably, trying to even out his breathing. His head was splitting with pain, as if it had been punched through a wall, and the dryness in his mouth was still not going away, irritating him even more. He probably looked terrible. Itachi was saying something else, and Sasuke was nodding, not really listening. He didn't notice how they had reached the house of the Namikaze Uzumaki family. They stopped at the gate, when the door suddenly swung open, and the eldest of the Hokage children literally flew out of the house, laughing cheerfully. The red-haired one froze at the doorway, his back to them, but the Uchiha noticed that his shoulders were shaking. As it turned out, from laughter. "I'm sorry, Mom. I promise I'll do everything later. I love you." There was a loud crash coming from the house, and then a female voice screamed something angrily, which made the guy laugh even harder. "Pa, save me!" Uzumaki shouted cheerfully when the Hokage's figure appeared in the doorway. The man looked skeptically at his eldest offspring and flicked him on the nose. "What's wrong, hey?" "Stop fooling around, Naoki," the blonde replied calmly, gently pushing him aside. "They're already waiting for you." "HM?" The red-haired man raised an eyebrow in surprise and finally turned to them. "Oh, Itachi-e." Even though this guy was from another world, Sasuke couldn't help but admit that he was, well, Naruto's brother. They were actually similar. Just take their optimistic nature and love for everything. Loud. They were both bright and eye-catching, even without doing anything. Naruto's gaze is mesmerizing with its rich blue. It looks like a clear summer sky, which is filled with sun rays. Naoki's eyes are the color of a stormy sky, when the clouds are filled with lead. Sasuke saw them once or twice, but the color of his eyes is completely stuck in his head. Maybe because the red-haired man's gaze was somewhat similar to Naruto's. Uchiha's gaze traveled over the smiling face, involuntarily finding familiar features. The shinobi noticed this, and his smile slowly grew into a mocking grin. "Well, hello there, you rascal." Sasuke blinked slowly. Namikaze was looking at him with a sly squint, something flickering in his gaze every now and then that Sasuke couldn't understand. The Uchiha frowned and was about to answer, when his brother interrupted him. "Good morning, Hokage-sama." "Good morning," Uchiha repeated automatically after his brother, receiving a soft smile in response. "Morning," Minato turned his gaze from Itachi to him, and his gaze became a little more cheerful. "Kakashi's test, huh? Naruto told me about your first meeting. You hang in there." "Thank you," the younger brother answered, confused. "He wants to leave here. He doesn't like so much attention to his person, he doesn't like the attention of these people right now." It seemed that fate had decided to take pity on him this time, and the next second a disheveled Naruto flew out of the house, crashing into her father's back. "Pa, I'm sorry," she exclaimed, but before moving away, she wrapped her arms around his stomach. "Morning, Itachi, Sasuke," the blonde greeted them, but her smile faded when their eyes met. "Shall we go?" the girl asked softly, and Uchiha was once again amazed at how easily she read him. Or was he just becoming obvious? Yes, he quickly nodded in response, allowing himself to be taken by the hand. "Let's go, see you later." She doesn't ask anything. Of course, she doesn't ask anything. There are hundreds of unspoken words between them, thousands of missed glances, and a million wasted moments. And nothing will fix it, but neither of them expect it to. There is something between them, this something has always been there, it has changed and grown, sometimes hung on a thread, but it is still there. Battered, but strong, stronger than anything in this world. And Sasuke will do everything possible and impossible, if only they would always have this something. He and Naruto stopped at a small lake not far from the main gate. It was still early in the day, so the streets were still empty. They still had a few hours before they had to meet Kakashi, not to mention that their sensei would definitely be an extra 2 or 3 hours late. If not more. The sun's rays sleepily glide over the surface of the lake, warming him with their breath. The wind gently passes by the trees, whispering its song and driving them even deeper into drowsiness. Between them, there is a soft silence and a calm atmosphere, despite his gloomy appearance. Naruto sits next to him, her shoulder touching his, barely noticeable, but enough for him to feel her presence. Calm down. That's what he was missing. He knows she won't ask. Frankly, they've always had trouble talking, but this time she's keeping quiet, giving him full choice. And Uchiha knows he can't keep quiet any longer, or he'll just burn up in the whirlpool of his own emotions, and he doesn't want that at all. And right now, their habits or desires don't matter at all, because there are times when you have to push yourself beyond your limits, and it's not just about fighting. All the bad stuff happens in silence, he's been through that before, and that's why he can't keep quiet now. I want this to stop. I want to stop feeling like this. Naruto is still silent, and for the first time in his life, Sasuke wants to be forced to talk. I think I'm going crazy. I can't stand all this. I can't look at Itachi and not remember his corpse. I can't look at that man and not think about how I killed him with my own hands, because that was the goal of my whole life. I can't look at him and not remember the feeling of suffocating emptiness that was left after he slaughtered my entire clan, and how the hell I killed him. He snapped. He did snap. His voice was shaking at the end, his hands were starting to shake, and Kami, it was so stupid. I thought I had come to terms with it. I thought it was okay and I could endure it, I thought I had come to terms with it, but I haven't, and I don't understand how. How you accepted it. That's what he wanted to say. The words hung between them like a heavy weight, and Sasuke was so angry. At Itachi, who never stopped pestering him, at his parents, who. Simple. And at Naruto, who accepted it. Not easily, no. He would never believe that Uzumaki accepted all this easily, he knew how much it really hurt her. And he was angry at himself for all this stupidity. Naruto gently took his chin and turned him to face her. Cold black eyes, covered with thin ice, met with the calm surface of the blue sky. Uzumaki did not flinch from his gaze, only squeezed her fingers tighter. It's not stupid. It will never be stupid, she began calmly. You've had a terrible life, Sasuke, but that doesn't mean you can't end up in a worse situation. There's no such thing as painless change. And the changes you've had are horrible, and it's okay for you to think about them. Naruto paused for a second, giving her time to process everything that had been said. The Uchiha licked his lips and turned his body towards her, signaling for the girl to continue. You will think about it further. But if you snap at your father, avoid your mother and keep your distance from your brother, this feeling will not go away. The blonde leaned her forehead against his and tiredly closed her eyes. It will come back every time if you continue to close your eyes and pretend that it does not hurt. No, Sasuke, it hurts. The situation you are in hurts. The fact that you see people you once lost hurts. The fact that you have to live knowing things that others have no idea about hurts. All of this hurts, it should hurt you, and you must not turn away, otherwise this feeling will never go away. And you know it. Yeah, he probably does. Sasuke isn't sure what he should say, so he just stares at Naruto's palms in silence. You don't have to say anything, Uchiha winced as the blonde leaned forward softly, nuzzling her nose into his shoulder. I know how hard this is for you to figure out. And you really shouldn't say anything, but thank you for talking to me, Sasuke. Because if there's anything in this world that you can't handle, then we can handle it together. My heart sank somewhere into my stomach and then began to beat wildly. Naruto. Sometimes she really does say things like that. Uchiha hugged the girl tightly, closing his eyes. She was quietly snoring somewhere on his collarbone, and her breath was sending pleasant goosebumps through his body. He still feels terrible, and he's definitely going to have another nightmare tonight. But at least now he knows what direction to think. Commentary on 0.5. The abyss calls to the abyss. A lot of Sasuke. Yes, a lot. But this chapter is important to me. And just important. I don't know, it became special for me. And it's so. Right, I don't know. Sasuke may seem OOC or overly emotional to you, but I honestly don't care because I think that's the right reaction for him. Because he's a difficult character. And he can be as icy as he wants, but he feels things much more than most. Yes, your eyes do not deceive you. It is I. First of all, I want to apologize for such a delay. But I can't promise that it won't happen again. I thought about it for a long time and realized that I have a lot of things to work on, so I can't say exactly when the chapters will come out. Forgive me. Secondly, I decided to open a group. I don't know if you'll be interested or not, but here's the link, https://vk.com/public1942058813. And finally, thank you. God, thank you. For all the reviews you leave, for such a high rating, which I honestly do not understand, but, God, thank you. And thank you, Olga Bariak, for the award. You already bring me to tears with your reviews, and now this. Thank you for everything. This means everything to me. Equals 0.6. Team of 3, 4 equals. What was that? Itachi asked as soon as the two figures disappeared from view. Naoki chuckled mockingly, but his eyes were heavy with lead. Your brother has designs on my sister. I'll pester him as much as I want. Uchiha blinked and then stopped, looking at his friend in confusion. Namikaze slowed down next to him and raised an eyebrow questioningly. Are you serious? Well, yeah, the red-haired man shrugged carelessly and continued on his way. Itachi followed him a second later. Just relax. I won't do anything to him. I'll just have some fun. Are you seriously going to take it out on a 13-year-old child? Does your brother look like a 13-year-old child? The brunette fell silent, his gaze boring into the serene profile of his best friend. A polite smile appeared on his face when someone familiar greeted him. But it did not reach his eyes, which still shimmered like cold icicles at the bottom. Naoki is the life of the party and just a person who has a good rapport with absolutely everyone, regardless of age or anything else. It's some kind of family trait, because Kushina-san and Minato-sama are like that too. However, if you compare, Naoki is more like Kushina-san. He has more of her indomitable nature than the serenity and gentleness of their Hokage. It seemed that there was no person more open and simple than him. And that is why Naoki is scary. They have known each other all their lives, but even Itachi cannot tell when his friend is serious and when he is just fooling around. Naoki Uzumaki is pure water, and can be colder than any Uchiha. Itachi saw his friend's cruelty. They were Umbu after all, and whether they wanted to or not, they had to do most of the dirty work, even by shinobi standards. Umbu were supposed to be cruel, sometimes callous, and Namikaze Naoki was the sun boy, the life of the party, a constant source of light, an excellent Umbu. Naoki gives even him, Itachi, goosebumps. Do you think the kids will pass Kakashi's test? Itachi flinched at the unexpected question. I don't know, he shrugged, finally throwing the thoughts out of his head. I can't imagine Sasuke working with anyone on a team. His partner hummed thoughtfully in response, throwing his head back. I wonder how much my sister has advanced. She's been training so hard all this time. Itachi didn't answer. He was also curious about how today's test would end and what Kakashi would say. In his free time, he watched Sasuke's training and couldn't help but notice how much more confident and faster his movements had become. And that was only for taijutsu. He was absolutely sure that his brother had been practicing with the Sharingan. Okay, let's go quickly. Obito is waiting for us, and after that we still need to drop by our father. What are we going to do on the test? I have no idea, Naruto shrugged lightly, putting her hands behind her head. The girl glanced cautiously at her companion, and the tension immediately released as soon as she noticed the brunette's relaxed shoulders. Why do we always end up in such shit? I have no idea, the girl repeated with a laugh. We're alone against the world again, Namikaze said thoughtfully. But this time we'll get through it together, not separately. Uchiha nodded softly. She and Sasuke stayed by the lake for a few hours. They didn't talk about anything else. Uchiha was silent, but he didn't look like he was on the verge of a breakdown. Naruto didn't bother him and just let him lie there quietly and gradually relax. He had already said enough, so the blonde wisely decided to let her partner have some time to himself. We should still think of something about the test. No, he and Sasuke would handle it, that was for sure. No, they had barely managed to reach the rank of Chunin, and that was a stretch, but together they still had a small chance of winning. And Naruto and Sasuke were the best at getting out of situations that seemed to have no way out. There was just one small problem right now. Sakura. Naruto winced. No, according to the memories of this Naruto, Sakura was much calmer than their Sakura at that age. They hardly communicated, and Namikaze watched the best student of their class from afar. But she still didn't like her. It wasn't hatred, thank Kami, but she still adopted the attitude of those around her. Namikaze doesn't know what to do with this, because she's used to her Sakura, whom Tsunade and her chosen profession as a doctor taught responsibility. Her Sakura was an adult, she had seen a lot of pain and was afraid for a long time. That's why she was wise and reliable. Her Sakura knew when to be silent and listen, and when to press, to take rudeness. They grew up together, and she wasn't afraid to trust her with her back. But this Sakura is a stranger to her. She's just a child. But they were assigned to the same team, they would have to fight together and learn to trust. Sakura wouldn't understand these words even if she was told so directly, and not because she was stupid, no. She just couldn't imagine the weight of these words. If Naruto can somehow control himself, then Sasuke can't. It will be impossible to convince him, and Namikaze won't force him. The situation really was not very good. I have a plan, the girl began hesitantly and, catching the Uchiha's expectant look, continued. But if we act on it, then Sakura must get the bells. Sasuke slowed down and looked at her. No. You didn't even listen to me. No, Uchiha frowned and resumed his pace. Sasuke, the blonde puffed out her cheeks in displeasure and tugged the guy by the elbow. We will pass this test in any case. And this means that we will work with her as a team for years. We cannot allow her to become a weak link, and who, if not you, knows that we grow the most through practice. Let's just let her experience teamwork and become a part of it. No matter how annoying she is at this age, Sakura is smart. Sasuke was silent for a few minutes, and the girl waited patiently. Uchiha knows that she is right, he just needs time to calculate all possible options. Naruto is ready to give him this time. In the end, it will be as she wants anyway. What if she can't handle it? He'll cope. Naruto nodded importantly, stretching her lips into a satisfied smile. But, noticing the Uchiha's piercing gaze, she immediately made a serious face. And if he can't cope? We'll help. Okay, Sasuke pursed his lips, tilting his head back to the sky. Tell me. Just don't tell me that you came at the appointed time. That was the first thing Naruto said to Sakura. The girl was sitting on the grass, leaning against one of the pillars. Naruto couldn't help but feel a little amused and nostalgic, remembering how she was tied to that pillar, forced to starve. Sakura gave her a scowl, but her spirits perked up when she saw the Uchiha standing behind her. She was about to open her mouth to greet him when her stomach growled. You didn't even have breakfast, Namikaze said pitifully, and Sakura, in turn, only blushed. But Sensei said. Yeah, he said to come at 5 in the morning, and where is he? Haruno blinked in confusion, looking at the blonde's mocking smile. Sasuke rolled his eyes and settled down not far from her. Sakura involuntarily blushed, but said nothing. There was a rustling sound, and the pink-haired girl looked at the extended chocolate bar in surprise. Here, this time Namikaze smiled encouragingly, her eyes were softly shining from within, and Sakura noted with surprise that she had never seen her smile. Well, smiled normally. Haruno hesitated for a second, but accepted the treat. Thank you, she said hesitantly, not taking her eyes off Naruto. She could have been rude like the previous times or ignored him, but that would have been stupid, because she really was hungry, and no matter what the test was, she would only get in the way. You're welcome, the blonde replied, still smiling, and plopped down on the ground. By the way, I know what kind of test it will be. What? The pink-haired girl exclaimed, noticing out of the corner of her eye that Sasuke hadn't even moved. Apparently, she had already told him. From where? Well, Kakashi-sensei is my father's student, Namikaze shrugged, then leaned forward. In short, we'll need to take the bells from him. And that's all? Hey, he's a jonin, Naruto snorted. You think it'll be easy? You're right, yes, Haruno muttered without thinking, touching her chin with her hand. Naruto beamed and threw a look at the Uchiha. See? I told you so. Maybe, Sakura hesitated, casting a cautious glance at Sasuke, and then at Naruto. There are 3 of us, right? Together we can do something. Right. The blonde jumped up, making Haruno flinch. Then we'll work together. Hey, team, come on, move closer. Sasuke's expression didn't change and he silently moved to sit next to the blonde. Sakura looked at them and something pricked in her chest because Sasuke looked so relaxed and calm. The village learned about the kidnapping of the Hokage's daughter and the heirs of the Uchiha and Hyuga clans pretty quickly. And if she didn't care about Naruto, she couldn't help but worry about Sasuke. Now she's a little ashamed of it, because Naruto could have died, but she was nobody to her, and back then Sakura really didn't care. It's not like that's changed, they're still strangers, but they ended up on the same team. And Naruto, this Naruto, was different, too bright and completely unlike herself. Although, how could she know what she was like? They never communicated. She really didn't care about the Hokage's daughter, but after their return, Sasuke-kun started to stick close to her and acted completely differently. And Sakura, as a devoted fan, couldn't help but be angry. Although her anger was feigned. It wasn't that she loved Sasuke that much. Or rather, loved. Sasuke, who smirked contentedly after every successful test or sparring match, who flashed a smile every time he saw his older brother, who was calm and reliable, albeit a little arrogant. She knew this Sasuke, she grew up with him since childhood, watching from afar. But the man in front of her scared her. This man wasn't smiling. At all. He was cold, very cold, and looked like he'd been suffering for a very long time. Sakura didn't understand it, of course, but she'd seen shinobi with the same looks. This Sasuke was a stranger. And unlike Ino, who either didn't notice these changes or didn't care, Sakura couldn't treat him the same way she used to. Naruto and Sasuke. Haruno doesn't know what happened the day they were kidnapped, but it changed them a lot. Not Hinata, but them. It was like these two were from another world, they just weren't themselves. Sakura may act like a fool sometimes and be too hot-tempered, but she knows how to observe and draw conclusions. These people are Naruto and Sasuke, but it's like they're not them. So, Sakura-chan, the kunoichi blinked and looked up at Namikaze with a confused expression. The paper rustled under her fingers, and only now did she notice that the chocolate had already been eaten. I have a plan, and you have a very important role in it. The girl couldn't help but tense up and wanted to panic, but the two looked very confident. Haruno took a deep breath and nodded, showing that she was ready to listen. This was their first step towards becoming a real team. It seemed she wasn't the only one who thought this, as Naruto smiled widely and Sasuke's gaze warmed a little. Well, I can praise you. You did a good job with the task. Kakashi-sensei narrowed his eyes approvingly, and Naruto was ready to explode with pride, because, Kami-sama, it worked. This plan was really simple, and Kakashi definitely fell for it. Naruto and Sasuke were supposed to distract the sensei and create a convenient moment for Sakura to grab the bells. Sakura didn't let them down, she and Sasuke did everything possible to give her the opportunity, and Haruno didn't let them down either. It may not have been their Sakura, but Team 7 has always had a special level of mutual support and understanding. Naruto felt relief flood through her insides, as Sakura really was easy to work with. But you haven't forgotten the rule, have you? Kakashi continued, something dark flickering in his one visible eye. One of you has to return to the academy. Oh, here it is. Oh, well, I guess it should be me, Namikaze shrugged sheepishly. These two are the academy's best students, after all, and it never hurts for me to study. I'm not going anywhere without Naruto, Sasuke said sharply, leaning against one of the pillars. His hair was disheveled, and some strands fell into his eyes, but he was relaxed. Then I'll refuse too, Haruno said stubbornly, resolutely handing Kakashi 2 bells. She thought she would feel terrible, but there was nothing else but satisfaction and quiet joy. It was so wonderful to work with them on a team, to be a part of it, to be useful. But a team wasn't limited to just fighting together. If Naruto and Sasuke decided to do this, then she would follow them. You all passed. Kakashi allowed himself a soft smile that could be seen in his eye. What? Sakura's eyes widened in surprise. But how? You said. You are the first team to pass this exam, the Jonin continued calmly, gently taking the bell from the girl's hands. The others didn't understand that teamwork is the most important thing for a shinobi. Naruto couldn't help but sigh quietly, because the words her teacher would say at the time had changed everything for her. In the shinobi world, those who break the rules are considered trash. But those who betray their comrades for the sake of completing a mission are worse than trash. Hatake glanced at the three genin and didn't even try to remove the picture of Obito, Rin, and himself. Satisfaction was softly swirling in his chest, spreading in waves throughout his body and causing goosebumps to form involuntarily. Did Minato-sensei feel the same way? The test is over and you all passed. Team number 7 is ready to carry out missions. So they passed your test. Yes, Hokage-sama. Minato leaned back in his chair, looking thoughtfully at the ceiling. Itachi and Naoki stood nearby, processing the information they had received. To say he was proud would be an understatement. Minato couldn't wait to get home and ask his daughter about everything. The children had indeed shown themselves well. According to Kakashi, they had worked well as a team, had managed to come up with a strategy and put it into practice perfectly. The first team to pass Kakashi's test. His daughter's team. Yes, Minato really can't help but be proud. What do you think about them, Kakashi? The ash-haired man looked at him silently, and then took out of his pocket a small box in which the bells so precious to his heart were kept. These are good kids. I think we'll get along. You guys worked great together. Oh, what can I say? You did almost nothing, Obito. What? Kakashi, you bastard. Guys. Commentary on 0.6. Team of 3, 4. This chapter was supposed to be a little different, but... well, something like that. Sakura's OOC, but I'll reveal everything later. Some reasons for her behavior have been voiced, and some will be revealed in the future. I don't know how you like the chapter, but it's also important. And thank you, oh my god. All these ratings and your reviews. I read every review, and you have no idea how much they make me happy. Thank you. Equals 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 0.7. Don't drown yourself in despair. Equals 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 equals. For as long as Naruto can remember, fatigue has been one of the constant emotions she experiences. It's always under her skin, on the periphery of her consciousness, making itself known every day. Maybe it's because Naruto is always fighting. With herself, with the world. The fight is in her blood, never stopping, waiting for the moment to wash over her in a furious wave. But Naruto has learned to ignore it. She spent her entire life learning to control something. And now, looking at Mrs. Shirjimi, who squeezed poor Tora in her arms, for some reason she feels tired, almost doomed. And slightly irritated. Sasuke's face, standing next to him, was as blank as possible, and Namake's envied it every time in a new way. No matter how hard she tried, she never learned to hide her emotions completely. Sakura silently pursed her lips, a sea of sympathy and pity splashed in her gaze. Naruto understood her, she herself was indignant last time. The blonde barely audibly exhaled, simultaneously thinking about when Tora-chan would escape next. So, Team 7, the Hokage began as the door slammed shut behind the ruler's wife. Naruto's eyes widened in horror. Your next assignments are... That's enough, for the love of Rakuto, she cried, jumping up from her seat. Her father fell silent in surprise and turned his gaze to her. We've been doing these kinds of missions for a month now, Databeo. Yes, I know, she continued, noticing Minato's mouth open, that these are normal genin missions and all, but how is helping with the harvest going to help us grow? I think we've all grown up enough for a higher-ranking mission. Having finished her emotional speech, the girl exhaled freely and stared at her father with a stubborn gaze. He thoughtfully pursed his lips, pondering something. His usually clear blue eyes were now darkened, covered with a veil of thoughtfulness. Okay, Minato said slowly, causing his daughter to cry out in joy. But, Hokage-sama, Namikaze Sr. silenced Shikaku with a gentle movement of his hand. Very well, you will have a more difficult mission, the blonde smiled indulgently, picking up one of the sheets of paper on the table. You must escort the bridge builder's family to the land of waves. That's another D. What? Namikaze blinked in surprise, casting an uncertain glance at Uchiha. He shrugged his shoulders in confusion. Family? Yes, the fourth nodded and turned his gaze to the door. Please come in. Well, the fox's voice sounded thoughtful. This is an alternative universe after all. Nobody said that all events had to be like in our world. Ah. Yeah, but still. Make your face simpler, otherwise you'll get caught, Kurama grinned, making the blonde wrinkle her nose. Tsunade's family was the same. Naruto couldn't help but feel a wave of nostalgia, and even the old man's scruffy appearance made her feel warm inside. She had a lot of memories with the land of waves. Not all of them were happy, but they were still some of the most important ones. The first serious experience, the first death she saw. The first time she lost someone who had become a kindred spirit to her in just one conversation. The first time she felt Kurama's chakra on her. The first time she inspired someone. And the bridge named after her. Yes, she had a lot of memories with this adventure. This is Tsunade-san, Minato began as the door slammed behind the arrivals. The silver-haired man nodded briefly, glancing haughtily at the genin. Naruto felt a slight twinge of irritation mixed with amusement. His daughter is Tsunami-san, and his grandson is Inari. Naruto turned her gaze to the woman, unable to hold back a smile. The time she had spent under her care had been filled with warmth and comfort. Tsunami-san was the epitome of domesticity, and her home was so different from the kunoichi zone that she had been uneasy for the first few days. The woman responded with a confused but gentle smile. Namikaze's heart skipped a beat, and she couldn't help but let out a tremulous sigh. How beautiful you are. And she suddenly stopped when Kurama's laughter sounded in her head. Tsunami-san blinked in surprise, her smile faltering for a second before softening. Her cheeks burned with heat, and Naruto pursed her lips, feeling very embarrassed and not daring to look at the others. Sasuke chuckled softly nearby, and the kunoichi barely resisted the urge to poke her hard in the ribs. The blonde lowered her head and involuntarily shuddered, faced with the contemptuous gaze of dark eyes. Crap. Maybe it was just her imagination, but in her world, Inari's gaze was a little softer. The child standing before her was literally emitting waves of hostility, and his eyes were filled with black hatred, which made Namikaze involuntarily shudder. You should have realized by now that people from our world and this one are different, Kurama said in a calm voice. Naruto vividly imagined him, resting his muzzle on his paws, looking at everything from the side with a lazy gaze. This kid's fate may be the same as ours, but he's still a different person. You should learn to separate these images. The blonde nodded mentally, without taking her eyes off the boy. But still. It's okay, Naruto, the soft tones that crept into his growling voice made everything warm inside. The Ninetales chuckled under his breath as his Jinchuriki's shoulders relaxed. Give yourself some time. You know that not everything happens at once. Yes, you're right, the girl grinned, and the next second Inari smiled widely. The boy blinked in confusion, and then frowned. Everything is quiet. The courtyard of the Shinobi Academy was crowded with children and their parents. Some of the adults were secretly looking at her, but Naruto was swinging the swing with a slight smile, staring blankly ahead. Even in this world, for some reason, no one ever came near that swing. For as long as Namikaze could remember, it had always hung alone in the shade of a tree, with only the wind to keep it company. Not that it bothered her much. After all, that corner was one of the most important little things to her. The blonde smiled at the crowd of children who were whispering about something, looking at her hesitantly, and suddenly jumped up from her seat when a familiar figure came out of the academy building. Iruka-sensei. Naruto? Her teacher blinked in confusion as a yellow swirl appeared in front of his nose. However, the surprise was short-lived, and a small smile appeared on his tanned face. Naruto had Iruka-sensei, this was a constant in both worlds. Her teacher often scolded the local Naruto, sometimes even shook his head in disappointment, but was still there. He sat with her after classes when the girl did not want to go home, walked with her around the village and, most importantly, still treated her to ramen at Ichiraku. Iruka-sensei was one of the reasons why the middle child of the Hokage, who so strongly disliked everything related to shinobi, overcame himself and continued to study. Naruto had thought about this more than once. If Iruka-sensei hadn't come for her on that fateful night, if he hadn't protected her, if he hadn't proven that he was truly attached to her, maybe her journey would never have begun. But Iruka-sensei stood between her and Mizuki. Between her and her own thoughts. He simply stood between them, but that single act was the beginning of her story. The words of a teacher who believed in her made Naruto believe in herself. This is where it all started. And in this world, Iruka believed in her too. Sensei. The kunoichi shook her head imperceptibly, putting a wide smile on her face. Our team was given a C-rank mission. Really? Yumino asked in surprise, a shadow of worry flashing across his face. Yeah, a satisfied nod served as his answer. I was surprised myself, but Dad quickly agreed. Namikaze slowed down, and then looked uncertainly at the teacher. You're not busy now, are you? She was afraid that she had scared the man away with her attitude, but all her worries disappeared when the shinobi smiled kindly, patting her on the bright top of her head. No, Naruto, it's okay. Let me buy you some ramen and you can tell me about the mission. Yes, Databeo. It may be selfish of her to cling to the people she cared about in her past life, but Iruka-sensei smiles at her in the same way, and Naruto sees no reason to deny himself this little whim. In the evening, when Naruto returned from meeting with Yumino, an extremely excited Akira was waiting for her. Nachan. The boy pounced on her right at the entrance, and the Jinchuriki had to catch him to keep from falling. Is it true that Dad gave you a mission outside the village? Yeah, the girl grinned and walked into the living room with the load in her hands. Hi, Aniki. Hi, Naoki waved back amiably, lounging on the couch. What's the assignment? We need to escort the bridge builder's family to the land of waves. Not bad, the scarlet-haired man whistled and moved slightly so that the younger ones could sit next to him. Damn, I'm jealous, Namikaze Jr. sighed heavily, crossing his arms over his chest. When I become a genin, and then... Naruto has never understood what a blood family is. She doubts that her bonds with her friends are the same as family, despite the fact that she considers them to be so. Her mom and dad were too few in her life, and Ero-sanin was not there when she was a child. It hasn't bothered her for a long time, but now that she has blood relatives, the blonde feels some kind of obligation. And it's not bad, it's just unusual. In the evening, their entire family gathers together. It is the time for all of them, when Dad returns from work, and she and Naoki return from missions. They sit at the table and, despite their mother's humorous threats, share their news. Sometimes the three of them would gather together, Naruto, Akira, and Naoki, and the two younger Namikazes would listen with interest to their older brother's stories. She liked these moments. She quickly got used to them and tried to enjoy them, despite feeling guilty at first. She found a common language with her brothers. They were too similar to each other, but at the same time different. It's wildly unusual, but she likes it. Listen, Aniki, Naruto called, deftly catching his younger brother's hand as he waved it around. The boy looked at her guiltily, but the mischievous smile didn't disappear from his childish face. What was your first mission outside the village? Exactly, Aniki. Easy, hey, the blue-eyed man exclaimed when Akira almost fell on him, resting his elbows on his hips. The guy sat his brother on his lap, ignoring his protests, and scratched his cheek with his finger. Naruto involuntarily saw herself in this gesture. The first mission. Boring. I was little then, and our mission was in Suna, the elder Namikaze winced. Hot, windy, and too much sand. Nothing interesting. It's really boring, Akira said disappointedly, playing with his brother's fingers. I hope you have more interesting things, Eni-chan. PFF, that's fine, Kurama chuckled, but his voice was relaxed. The atmosphere had a good effect on him, too. Yeah, right. I'm home, came the voice as the door slammed shut. Dad's here. Akira instantly tore from his place, hurrying to his father. The blonde followed his small figure with a cheerful look. Yar yar, how energetic. Naruto involuntarily shuddered when her brother buried his chin in the top of her head. The girl hesitated for a few seconds, and then leaned her back on his chest. Naoki chuckled under his breath. How much trouble he'll bring to the academy. That's for sure, the kunoichi laughed, remembering all her pranks. Sometimes she feels sorry for the people around her. That's exactly it, the fox muttered in her head. I should have a monument erected to me for putting up with you all these years. What? Came the indignant response. Who's talking, you red-haired bastard? You should thank fate that you have such an awesome Jinchuriki, Databao. Dream on, human, Hubie said condescendingly, but his voice was dripping with amusement. Namikaze couldn't put into words her joy when Kurama had fully regained his strength and was now free to insert his comments at any time. Naruto was about to answer, but a soft touch on her cheek made her freeze. The girl turned her surprised gaze to her brother. He carefully ran his finger along one of the stripes, his gaze shining with an unfamiliar warmth. Aniki? Something wrong? You're doing well, Naoki smiled slightly, moving his hand to her head. The gentle touch only confused the Jinchuriki even more, and when the scarlet-haired man leaned down, softly kissing her temple, Naruto's heart stopped for a second. You'll do great on this mission, Emuto. The blonde stared silently at her brother, who laughed at the expression on her face. That's it, let's go meet the old man. And he just left. What? What was that? A show of brotherly love, I suppose, the fox chuckled in response. He's a shady brother, but he's a good one. Yes, Kurama is right. Naoki is usually busy, but he is very careful with Akira, tries to pay as much attention as possible, spoils him, but pulls him back when he gets impudent. At first, after they were transported to this world, Naruto could not sleep normally. Naoki noticed this and, writing it off to the fact that she was having a hard time after the abduction, sat with her until she fell asleep. It was terribly uncomfortable at first, unusual, but Naoki never pushed. He did not say anything, just sat on the floor next to the bed, held her hand and sometimes touched the top of her head. Naruto quickly got used to it. There are too many gaps in her life that, unfortunately, neither her loved ones, nor her stubbornness, nor her willpower can fill. And then this. And yes, Naoki is a wonderful older brother. Naruto? A warm palm touched her shoulder, tearing her out of her thoughts. The blonde raised her head and met the gaze of blue eyes. Exactly the same as her own. Everything okay? The air around her trembles with powerful chakra, the smell of burning fills her nose, making her feel sick. Everything around her seems to be soaked in blood, as if drowning in darkness, and only her dad's face shines like the sun. She shares her plan, sometimes looking at him to meet his soft, enchanted gaze. Their fists touch, she is drawn into the whirlpool of his emotions, and she cannot believe that someone is capable of loving her so much. Her heart aches in her chest, and her eyes burn from unshed tears, but she stubbornly continues to talk, and her dad shines and shines and shines like a blinding sun. Just thinking, she smiled. Welcome back. I'm home, the smile again, so familiar and dear, real, but she still can't believe that she hasn't gone crazy, that she's not dreaming. Dad sat down next to her, still holding his hand on her shoulder. Her heart sank heavily into her stomach, and someone else's palm warmed her pleasantly. Are you nervous about the mission? Is she worried? Maybe. She tries not to think about what awaits them. Maybe their team won't meet Zabuza and Haku, maybe the opposite. Naruto knows that if he starts worrying, it will only make things worse. The unknown is a nasty thing, but it was a constant guest in her life, so the Jinchuriki has learned to face it with her head held high. Life is unkind and certainly not kind, but it's not like that ever stopped Naruto. A little, the blonde replied. And then smiled broadly. But we'll be fine, Databao. I have no doubt, the father smiled softly, and then took out one of his kunai. Here you go. Huh? The girl blinked in surprise, but obediently took the weapon. Why is this? You can have it. My gift. Forth moved his hand from her shoulder to the top of her head, ruffling her hair. Consider it a good luck charm from your dad. The man tilted his head, smiling once again, and Naruto's breath caught. Her sun shone and shone and shone. These walls pressed much less, and the tight knot that encircled his ribs had long since subsided. Sasuke had finally learned to breathe freely and seemed almost accustomed to it. As a child, his parents' home had always been a safe place for him. Sasuke thinks that perhaps this place can become something close again. He hates change, but, unfortunately, he is always ready for it, because life is merciless and certainly not kind, and the wishes of a stupid boy never bothered her. But that's okay. Sasuke is a fighter, he's used to fighting. Especially with opponents who seemed impossible to defeat. The brunette placed the packed backpack on the bed and, with a heavy sigh, went downstairs. His mother's voice came from the kitchen, and the Uchiha stopped in the doorway. His heart was pounding dully in his chest, echoing in his ears. The longing for his family had never left his heart, even during those disgusting years when he hated Itachi. His clan was alive, his parents were alive, his brother was alive, and they were all, it seemed, happy. But his heart still broke into pieces at the sight of them. "Oh, Sasuke." Mom noticed him first, immediately turning her full attention to him. The conversation quickly stopped, and 3 pairs of eyes stared at the brunette. "Have you finished packing?" "Dad, Mom, Itachi." They were alive, sitting in the kitchen of their house right now, waiting for him to join them. He was afraid it was a dream, even though it had been so long since he and Naruto had been in this world. His family. He just had it. Yes, the lips involuntarily stretched into a smile. A light, barely noticeable, but real. "Honestly, I'm hungry, what are we having for dinner?" Stepping over the threshold of the room, it seemed to him that he had once again stepped over himself. He felt better. Naruto was right, of course. Comment to 0.7. Don't drown yourself in despair. Kushina will be there too, and Mikoto and Fugaku too. But a little later. I'm very ashamed again, but here I am again. Sorry. And thank you for still waiting for this work, because your dedication shocks me. This work has 613 likes. I am really shocked. Thank you.